All right, so my name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, a clothing company that is so much more than just a clothing company. We are called In the Image Clothing Company because we are all universally designed in the image of our living God, who is Jesus Christ. So we discuss the skeletal system because the fat content of the body comes and goes, the musculature, muscle mass comes and goes, but the skeletal system just has to be allowed to operate the way that it does. Because really, all the musculature of the body does anyway is operate, pivot, and hinge and rotate the skeletal system. The body, we talk about it as it is. That's how I'm going to finish discussing that. We just talk about the body as it is, as it was designed by our God before we then came into the world and got altered through worldly things and clothing. And that's really why we're a clothing company, because clothing is the only thing placed physically directly on us at all times. So it's the only thing that we ever could interact with that has the potential to alter us to that degree at all times, right? So if it's imbalanced at all, in any direction, any way, or if it's unnatural, ideally we're within 100% natural materials, if and when we can be. It might be kind of noisy, there are some games and practices going on, that's fine. So, yeah, I've had a couple prerequisites since before I founded In the Image Clothing Company, just to allow the body to have a chance to operate natural. Because that's what we're doing here. That's all that we do here, actually, truly, is get our bodies back to natural. Within our own capabilities, within our own situations. If you've got very specifically unique to you things, okay, we can address those, we can work around them, but you're already working around them if they're your situation. So, yeah, the prerequisites are to lace your shoes with In the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique. It's just a shoelacing technique that we have. Included with that is just tying your shoes evenly over toward the inside. All the technique does is allow your foot to be your foot. There's the same ligaments, tendons, muscles, and bones in feet, unless you really do have a unique one, and that's fine. And they just need to operate the way that they're designed to, because they only do that. That's it. And every or any and all other combinations in any kind of way of shoe lacing and or tying paired will alter your feet in some kind of way. So that's why we have the technique that we do. You can find that where you find In the Image Clothing Company content, InTheImageClothingCompany.com, or just anywhere online. Nowadays, today is the 24th of October, 2024, you can find us. So, pairing the shoelacing technique with removing the tags, stemming within your shoes, anywhere in there that they are, they're normally in the tongues, and then up through all the clothing you ever wear. And I've discussed tags in depth. Tags are almost always nowadays made out of synthetic materials that the body doesn't even want to have to be in contact with at all, but then they're placed inside of clothing, pressing them against us at all times, and there's just a physical unnatural gap that they cause wherever they're placed within clothing that alters the body's natural workings in a great way. So those are the prerequisites. All right, so here's the thing. I'm going to talk about the trachea in this video. The trachea is this like tube of cartilage in the middle of your neck. You see how it actually moves, right? Where you swallow things, right? And that's what's surrounding like the tube. The cartilage. Today, actually, I made a video on the ears, how clothing affects the ears. You can check that out. I made a video also today on the nose, how clothing affects the nose. You can check that out as well for In the Image Clothing Company. That's where you'll find it. Find those videos under In the Image Clothing Company. So the reason I mentioned those after discussing how this is made out of cartilage is because so are the ears and the nose. The trachea is supposed to be in the center, right? And I discussed how we live on a earth. Gravity pulls us directly straight. You can look at my buttons when I wear button-up shirts. They stay centered. Very rare to see, other than people who know In the Image Clothing Company. I mean, I'm sure that there's people who do things to allow their buttons to stay centered, but it's very rare. But that's what we do here, and I've shown how to do that. You can go find, well, okay, yeah, I made a video one time titled, I think I titled it Making Button-Up Shirts More Comfortable. It's a few months ago. But I showed how to do what I've done with this in that video. But so anyway, the trachea needs to stay in the center. I always discuss how the nose is in the center. The sternum, being where the rib cage connects in the front, is in the center. Directly behind that is our spine, which has to stay in the center. Otherwise, we're imbalanced. And if that does happen, whether it's for something that's outside of our control or something within, I don't want to say control, but something that we can do something about, as far as like things we choose to place on us that we can make centered, in those cases we have to try to have everything be centered, because if we're at all out of balance, no matter what the reasoning is, no matter if there is something you can do about it in the way that you want to or not, or what, just the point is, gravity is not going to change how it pulls us straight down. And so the body will be using stabilizing muscles in ways they aren't designed to just hold the body vertical, or, you know, sit the body vertically if you're sitting, which I talk about sitting all the time, how the human body doesn't actually sit at somewhere around a 90-degree angle in the knees and the hamstrings, especially not with the hamstrings physically on something. I have a lot of videos that I've discussed sitting in, but I have one titled "The Human Body Doesn't Sit in Chairs." Just for the sake of, I mentioned that, I want to make that clear. You can go find that. No claims that are just like opinionated. We discuss universal, undisputed truth here at In the Image Clothing Company, regardless of how far-fetched it seems to you at your current understanding, or how weird it seems. No matter what you think about it, we talk about, we discuss, we go over universal truths that don't change regardless of what you think about them or what I could think about them or did in the past or down the road. They're just what they are. So what I'm saying with that is we need to stay centered. The trachea, same thing. It comes through our jaw, right? The jaw is kind of like separate in a sense from the skull, and then it's like connected because it can move, right? Separate from your skull. Your head can stay in its same position. Like your spine, your cervical spine comes up and connects into the base of your head, and your head can stay in the same position while your jaw still moves. And what I mean by that is just, I've discussed many times in the Image Clothing Company videos how one of the jaw's natural functions is to stabilize the entire body, as well as allowing us to speak, allowing us to chew food. Now, the trachea goes through the jaw being like this bone like this, right? That's separate from the actual skull. The trachea goes through the jaw, and it goes where the collarbones come in and meet. I have a video for In the Image Clothing Company titled Natural Collarbone Angle, where these clavicles or collarbones come in and meet the sternum. The trachea also goes through there. Okay, and so those have to be centered because they're meeting the sternum, which is in the center, and the jaw has to be centered because it's stabilizing the entire body for it to stay centered, and the trachea goes between those two things. So, point is, I always talk about the imbalance that is so absolutely chronically common. People are in a constant chronic state until fixed of external rotation so commonly nowadays, like this, external versus internal. And I've said many times, and again I will say it here, if you boil down what we do at In the Image Clothing Company to like one thing for the body, it's getting back our natural, even internal rotation that is so absolutely natural and so chronically lacking in most all human beings in 2024, because we're all within the same world, and there's man-made things that are so flat when the hand is radiused. I've discussed that. I have videos titled Incorporating a Radius in Daily Life, something along the lines of that wording within the title. You can go find those within In the Image Clothing Company content. That will basically just like take away your natural internal rotation if your hands are not allowed to have the radius that they would have, because they are using things that are flat, that is not ever able to even be there in nature the way that it is in man-made things. And as well as just anything stemming from the feet, tying your shoes toward the same direction, which is almost always toward the right, since 85%, give or take, of the population of the earth are right-handed. That's just a knot that they would be tying. They meaning myself up until last year, 2023. And then I started to tie my shoes evenly, which we have to do, or else no human being, myself included, in those cases we would never be able to rid pain from our bodies if we were tying our shoes toward the same direction. You have to tie them evenly, over toward the inside, stemming at your feet. That's the biggest thing. So what happens is people are almost always nowadays in this imbalance where the right side of their body is so externally rotated and the left side of their body is pretty well normal, but the body is connected, and so everything plays into everything else. So the left side can't, meaning non-dominant, right? Can't quite be normal, but it's pretty close. So this right side's so external. Now, what'll happen with the trachea? Well, okay. So many things within clothing design. I really do think the reason that they do it is to try to accommodate, but there's so many imbalances within clothing design in modern 2024. And the thing is, they're actually, most all of the imbalances are playing into the same patterning stemming from tying shoes toward the right. There's the dreaded collar seam. I have a video for In the Image Clothing Company on the dreaded collar seam within the collars of t-shirts. That modification has to be done, or else you will never have even shoulders, ever. Again, myself included, if I were to be wearing shirts with the collar seam without the modification done. Yeah, a lot of things within clothing are playing into the same patterning that will be placing the right side of the body into external rotation. Take a look at my trachea as I explain this. So the right side of the body, just like watch this position and the centeredness between like these muscles and everything and the center of the jaw. So the right side of the body is in external rotation. The left side of the body is mostly normal, but still just not quite. Pretty close though, really. I want to say that pretty darn close on the left side. It's not altered so much, really. But yeah, so you're kind of like this, right? Well, my feet are like this right now because that's how I'm standing, but okay, you're kind of like this. Now this trachea is like, you see this like, oh gosh, this video. So there's like muscles, right, on the sides of the neck, just meaning the muscles move the neck, right? So you can have natural neck mobility. Now, I'm standing even and straight, naturally internal and neutral, okay? Good, normal stance. I mentioned I don't normally use the word posture because it's not something to be conscious of, but just I've allowed my body to get back to natural, okay? I mean, right. Just meaning we're always interacting with things that could potentially alter our bodies, but, you know, yes. So, in this position, look at the centeredness of the trachea. Now, if I'm going to stand even and neutral as I do, and I look left, okay, and now I look right. With the trachea in the center, these muscles on the sides aren't going to like hit into it. Because like I showed earlier, I mean, it can move. You can actually move your trachea. Well, I mean, just because it needs to be pliable because your whole neck has a lot of motion and mobility in it. And so it needs to be able to move within that and kind of separate from it as well, because like, see, it's pretty much staying very close to the same spot. And this muscle over here will kind of hit into my thumb, and this muscle over here will kind of hit into my finger. Watch this. See that? See how my thumb's literally going between the trachea and that muscle? Now watch the other side. Same thing. This is a muscle right here that my finger's going underneath. So what happens is, if this side's external, look at the position that it then puts the trachea in. It actually puts it more toward the left, the opposite side of the side that's external, okay? Just want to make sure I mean, doesn't matter if I say it perfectly, whatever I discuss here, but I want to make sure I say this all, mostly at least the way I should be saying it. So, because what'll happen is, on the actual trachea, you can get bound up like, I don't know, muscle, scar tissue, whatever it is, from being in a position where it's been so out of its natural centeredness, right? External. Yeah, it does. It puts the trachea toward your left side, the opposite side of the external improper position side. Yeah, you can see that. See this gap? Like that muscle that my thumbnail was going underneath is like there, and this is like the center of my Adam's apple, right? Now watch this. If this goes back internal, normal, this gap like shortens just a little bit. Yeah, okay. So what'll happen is, since this has been in such a gap for so long, this muscle hasn't really, you know, being in that patterning for X amount of time that you have been, this muscle hasn't really ever throughout that time been able to fully like, I mean, I don't want to try to over explain it to the point where it needs to be like I'm in some class, like explaining it. I just want to show what's happening. But I guess like that, like the point is, there's like this gap to where on the actual exterior of the trachea, it will get bound up to where this muscle can't quite like overlap onto the trachea as it naturally would. I mean, if that makes sense, it doesn't matter how perfectly I explain it. I just want to make it make sense, because that's the only reason I'm saying this, is so people can see what's happening. Because if you picture this upper trap, I'll have a video for In the Image Clothing Company titled Right Rear of the Neck Pain. And it's so common for people to have pain all throughout here, because if this whole side's external, you're never going to be actually like really using your right upper trap, the muscle that raises and lowers your shoulder. And to be able to happen, your shoulder has to be in its natural position. I mentioned the video about the collarbone. I also have a video for In the Image Clothing Company titled Shoulders Naturally Sit Behind the Body. You saw me rotate 90 degrees a minute ago and stand, and you saw where my shoulders were naturally. If the right shoulder is external, it's never going to get behind the body in its natural, internally rotated, neutral position. And so this gap will then like shorten, the collarbone's coming up, and everything's kind of like moving back over. Okay, no, this is good. I just want to make it make sense. It doesn't matter how like smart I sound about what I know with this. I want to make it make sense, that's all. That's why I'm just trying to make sure like I get something that people could see, you know, no matter like if you know anything about the body mechanics of any part of the body at all. I just want it to make sense, that's it. So for whoever's watching its sake, that's the only reason I'm making it, right? Video. So yeah, external here, collarbones down, these muscles are kind of like clear over here, right? So on the actual exterior of the trachea, stuff can just get bound up, and it's like it's not ever really being like, you know, I don't know how to really word that, but I think you can see what's happening. So the point is, once you start tying your shoes even, and you get this side back to internal, if there's like bound up stuff there, this muscle is going to hit into it. And so even if this shoulder is trying to be in a good position, your trachea is like used to being over here because it would be here, rather than, watch this, here. You see, it kind of moves from here to over to centered. And so like, look at when I move my Adam's apple, well, that's a good thing to do actually. Watch this. It needs to have room here, and by room I just mean it needs to be pliable, and it's been so chronically like, you know, almost like extended excessively to the point where it like binds up. I don't really know how to really word it, but that's what's happening. I mean, yeah, I don't know why it feels like maybe there's something else, oh, okay, check this out. The collar seam, right? That collar seam places you here. Now, the collar is almost never going to be touching the front right of your neck. If you're in external rotation over here, if that collar seam is putting the seams where I discuss it puts them in that video, the dreaded collar seam, where this top seam on this shoulder will normally sit in front of the shoulder, this top seam on this shoulder will normally still stay pretty well behind it, so you'll be standing similar to this. Holy cow. Okay, that's why I wasn't like I was trying to figure out why didn't it feel right to explain it, because I discussed what was happening, but there's more. I had to mention this collar seam. So this will pretty much almost always be like a little bit off of the neck if you're like this. Also, oversized clothing. I have a video titled "Why Oversized Clothing is Common." If you're wearing a shirt that's too large, it's going to fall toward your dropped, externally rotated right side of your body. And this is never going to be quite touching your neck on the right the same as it is on the left. And the body's sensory, whether we're aware of anything intellectually or not, consciously or not, subconsciously, the body is noticing everything. There's nerve endings all over the body, and it just notices things. The body does that on its own. It breathes on its own, it heals itself on its own. Now, speaking of breathing, right? When you breathe, the trachea, well, whether it's through your nose or your mouth, the air goes through the center of your trachea down into your lungs. If this is always a little bit away from this right side of your neck, sensory-wise, you're almost using your neck to try to like pull your shoulder back, pull your collarbone up to center your head with the front right of your neck muscles, because there's, first of all, a physical, literal knot from a rope on your shoe on the right side, pressing down your arch into external rotation that travels up your entire body. Then also the collar seam, the little stitch within the flies of pants that's on that left side of that rear flap on the zipper. Those things, there's so much. I mean, buttons, if you don't do the modifications that I do, then they go to the right, placing you to this same position. I just want to mention things so it doesn't sound like I'm just claiming something. Oversized shirts onto the hands. I have a video titled How Shirt Cuffs Affect Body Mechanics. If you're trying to hold your hand open here, that's going to place you into this same position, right? So many things. I have a video titled How Pant Cuffs Affect Body Mechanics. If there's a pant cuff on your right side that's longer, because of the design of stitching in pants, that's going to place you a little bit here as well. Really just because the head's going this way, because this side's external. This is tightening, all this is tightening, all this is, yeah. So anyway, there's a lot. I mean, okay. Tags in the left of clothing causing a gap here places you over here. Same exact patterning. I'm not claiming something, right? I wasn't planning on discussing all of these things, but truth is the point, right? I can get into it. I can get into it. That's just surface. Seriously, that's just the surface. I'm not just saying that. I mean it. Cause yeah. Well, okay. Pants button, the top comes over to the left in the front, like there's a zipper and then a button, and now this opening on the left side will kind of like put your head in the same position and put a gap here, and then golly, I mean, it's just truth. Truth is truth. I mean, this is it. That's it. Like, yeah. Anyway, oh gosh. So, yeah. The point is, gosh, I just get humbled. It's like, I like to say that I know what I'm talking about with this stuff, because I don't want people to think that I'm just claiming something. Because I know what I'm talking about. It's not about me, but I know this stuff. Meaning, don't dismiss it, because it's truth, period, and done, as I say a lot of the time. So, gosh, man, I mean, because what, you want to dismiss it? I'm not trying to be accusations, but I just know that people are so quick to think that things sound crazy, and then they live in hell, in pain, they can't breathe, and gosh, man, this is me getting humbled is what this is, because I'm just realizing how much I actually know this stuff. Okay, so you have to just be able to have your trachea centered as best as you can within your own body. If you have things within your own actual physical person that's different, okay, we can work around those things to the degree that we can. Let's do that, or like, you know, we will and we can in those cases. But all of these things are completely external for every human. I mean, you change your clothing and another item comes on. Like, it's just clothing, it's just external, but it's doing these things to the inside of your neck. So, yeah. Anyway, what I was saying with the sensory of this is your body notices this, okay? And it's just like, oh, it's normal, there's something there. But then it's like, wait, but I can also kind of feel things besides where the collar seam is before the modification. Similar to this, it's off of your neck, but here. So then that traps up, working pretty naturally, and this one's just being destroyed. Not allowed to work, really, and so external, and yeah. So, but the body will sense it here, and so it's like, okay, this feels pretty normal to the rest of my neck, says the body. But then you get to here, and there's like a gap because of all of these other things that I've discussed here, to the point where it's like trying to breathe, trying to expand to find it, to make it feel like the rest of the neck. And if you're trying to like expand your neck, you'll end up like breathing with your neck to a degree, because there really are diaphragms within the neck as well as in your like abdomen. There are, but they shouldn't be definitely shouldn't be imbalanced, and they shouldn't be working the way that these things are causing them to work. So you'll kind of be like breathing like this, and then that's excessively shortening the neck, pulling on the jaw then again stabilizing as it naturally does, but now out of an imbalance so chronically, to the point that, you know, you swallow your food, and I mean, it takes muscles to swallow, and everything's imbalanced. You speak, and like your larynx, your voice box is in there, but it's imbalanced, and I mean, it gets deep. So anyway, I don't know. I mean, I probably could just keep thinking of things that I could mention that are playing into it, but really the point is, check out In the Image Clothing Company, because we have modifications within things. Like, I have a collar seam in this shirt, but I have the modification done to where it's pretty good, really, as far as like it makes the shirt pretty centered, pretty even. It really does. I mean, there's still just an imbalance, right? There's still something thicker and different on one side that's not on the other side, but it really does make it pretty good. But yeah, I mean, check out the, you know, modifications that we have that I've freely shown that take nothing but a pair of scissors within the clothing you already do own. Definitely just tie your shoes evenly, and I talk a lot about one-time releases. I always say we never give exercises or stretches as in the Image Clothing Company, but I discuss how if the body's been in such a chronically imbalanced position for like many years, then a lot of times there is a one-time release that just has to happen to allow it to be back to its normal position. And that's okay, because then from there you just take the knowledge that you've gotten, whether it is from us at In the Image Clothing Company or just whoever discusses this. It's just universal truths. It's not like our information, right? I mean, it's what we discuss, but I mean, anybody could, there might be people across the globe somewhere that know quite a bit of the stuff that I talk about, being the founder myself, you know, of In the Image Clothing Company. I mean, I'm not the only one that knows at least some of this stuff. I don't know if there's anybody who knows quite the extent of what I do know about clothing in the human body. I really don't know if there is currently on the earth another human being that has the understanding that I do about that. I really don't know. Meaning there might not be. The point with saying that is just do what you can to get your body to be allowed to be centered. And when I was discussing the one-time releases, I don't really want to tell you what to do, because I don't want anyone to hurt themselves, and I'm not even telling you to do it, but I'm telling you it has to be done. That's how I kind of like get around that, not in like a bad way getting around it, but I don't want people to hurt themselves. But also, yes, I mean, if there's bound up stuff all throughout, it needs to just be kind of like released to be able to have its normal motion and mobility, and allow the trachea to just have its, you know, natural movement. Because your whole neck will be tense if you have just a little bit of tension right here. And if you continue to wear shirts with collar seams without doing the modification, even if you release it, it'll just get tense again. Or anything else within clothing that's an imbalance that you do know about, how to allow it to be balanced, and you don't do it. Doesn't matter how much you release anything. Just like doesn't matter how many times you want to play with your foam roller and stretching routines. If you go back into imbalanced clothing, you will just continue to do that. Or you can just, to the degree that your body is capable of this, you can just never stretch, as I don't, and just allow the body to work, right? In my past, I mentioned this, I used to stretch all the time, trying to get to normal or where I thought that was, never in those times actually getting there. And now I just allow my body through clothing and through all, other things within my life as well that I have learned about, just because In The Image Clothing Company, this company that I have founded, is about the body. It's not about clothing, but we approach the body through clothing being the only thing that we actually place on it at all times. Anyway, I don't stretch. I mean, I just don't stretch. I do not. We shouldn't have to. The body's designed to do its functions. If we're allowing it to have its full ranges of motion and allowing it to have its regular positions, it'll just do its regular thing. Really, truth. I mean, truth is truth. No matter if I want to believe it or he or she or him or her, it's just what it is. So anyway, there's the trachea. Like I said, and as I kind of kept coming up with things, there's probably a lot more that I could say. I mean, even button up shirts, like you button up a shirt against, I should say this, not only could I, if you button up a shirt, there's a gap, right? This is bigger than this side. It's just different. And watch my Adam's apple, right? If your trachea is going all the way to here and all the way to here, and right in the center, it's like completely imbalanced, and you're trying to breathe wearing this and then a tie. I also have a video I made one time called "Tying a Tie for a Healthy Body." Gosh, I just kind of get this way because it's so humbling. It's ridiculous that I didn't learn about any of this stuff in a book. I don't know how I even know this stuff. All right. Anyway, yeah, I'm almost tearing up. It's crazy. Check out In The Image Clothing Company. We discuss universal truth. Check out In The Image Clothing Company podcast. We just discussed the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is the truth of all things. So, yeah, just where you find your podcasts, you'll find us. All right. Crazy. Like, crazy. Because it's crazy. If you say stuff like this to people without, like, going into it, they're like, oh, you're crazy. Well, that's fine, because it seems that way. I understand. But, like, it's not crazy. It's just foreign to us until we know it. So, yeah. Anyway. Man. Yeah, so, well, okay, I'm going to talk about the back of the shirt when it comes to tags and the collar seam. If you do have a tag in the rear of your shirt and you have the collar seam, okay, well, both of those things together is just a terrible combination. But either one of those alone will do a lot to the trachea. If you have a tag in the rear of your shirt and you have an oversized shirt to where the shirt collar can slip side to side on around your neck, it's going to sit more toward your dominant side, being in that externally rotated position, which is more of a dropped position than internal rotation. The shirt will slip over. The tag will then go from the center of your spine off to the right, where this upper trap is, and that upper trap will then, already not being able to activate naturally if there's imbalances in the other things through clothing that I've mentioned, but then having a tag placed on it, a literal physical gap there, it's especially not going to be activating. And then there's going to be compensation that's trying to happen in other parts of the muscles within the neck and the jaw, and a trachea. So from the rear, the trachea can be affected as well. If you are using things that are flat so commonly, it's just going to completely alter the way that the upper trap activates, the position of the collarbone, which muscles within the shoulder capsule, because really the shoulder, I've said before, the shoulder really is the hand and the wrist, because it has to stem from here, but then also down here affects up here. But really the shoulder is the deltoid, the tricep, the bicep, the upper trap, mid, lower trap, the rhomboids, the rotator cuff, the pec to a degree, the lat inserts into the shoulder, doesn't really do what most people think that it actually does. The shoulder's all of that, and if you're using things that aren't allowing your natural radius to be there, then your neck's going to try to compensate, like I was showing, this like position to try to hold your shoulder up, because all of those muscles aren't allowed to do their natural function because of something flat in the hand when there's a natural radius. And I have videos, holy cow, this gets deep. I have videos for In the Image Clothing Company about the hand. There's one titled The Natural Hand, where I discuss just the shape of the hand and how the things that we're using nowadays in modern 2024 don't allow the hand to even possibly do its only function. The body only does what it does. I have a video titled The Neutral Wrist. I titled it The Natural Wrist. The point is it's a neutral wrist, but it's titled The Natural Wrist. I have a video titled How the Pinky Finger Affects, well, it's titled The Pinky Finger Affects the Entire Body, because really that is where your neutral wrist is. And using things in a position that doesn't allow your wrist to be just neutral, straight out from the pinkies, that is going to affect the position of your trachea as well. And what happens is where your collarbones come in, okay, shoot, we can get so deep. Like I was saying, like, see, this is the tips of my collarbones. If I have hair, I got hair, bro. But see this, how it, like, everything should be able to move, right? And when this trachea, being in an externally rotated position, similar to how I was saying there's binding here from this imbalance, there gets binding where people are looking down so often, because really external rotation, you're not going to be able to lift unless you get, again, those traps allowing you to really expand. And so in internal rotation, right, with the shoulders back in their natural position, so like the lower part of the trachea almost never actually gets, like, I almost want to use the word exposed, as far as like out from where those collarbones are. Because watch this, like where this, like the bottom of my trachea, if you will, is actually quite a bit lower than here. Because watch this, see this distance? Most people don't look up ever, because if your body's in a position where it can't, then you just can't physically do it, because your muscles are tensing into the position that your bones are in an improper position because of patterning through mostly clothing and flat things within the world. So, okay, when I said I know what I'm talking about, that's why I say that, is because, like, I want people to listen to truth, okay? Please. So anyway, yeah, we will have clothing available to purchase as In the Image Clothing Company. And when we do, we will never have any kind of tags protruding from the insides. It will be always made out of 100% natural materials, no logoing or branding on the exterior, and it's just going to allow the body to work by doing this, okay? Clothing on the universal human design skeletal system, universal, right? Fat content, muscle mass, height, width, gender, those things don't matter for the functionality of the body, the way it's designed to actually work. Clothing has to sit where the pants are entirely above the hips, slightly higher in the front than in the rear. It wouldn't be this high, but you can't see my waist from where I'm standing, where the camera is. And then shoulders, the top seams need to sit behind that little bone that's on the tops of the shoulders. And then the edges, ideally should be right at the very edges of your shoulders, just because that's where your shoulders are going to hinge. Okay, so that's where the modifications intend on having clothing sit that we have, that you can do to your own clothing. Find videos of that where you find us online, and we will always incorporate the intention for clothing to sit in those locations within our designs at In the Image Clothing Company. So thank you. I'm going to leave you with this. I love this. I didn't know, I mean, I don't have structures for these videos. I just pray through it. I just have a topic and I go off the top. I love how thorough this video got. I love it. I am so grateful for the amount of understanding that I've been given about the body, because, I mean, it's all we got. Everything in your life comes and goes, no matter what. I mean, this is the only thing you got. You got one body in this one life, and that's it. And so if we're not going to be allowing it to work, then we're going to be struggling, trying to just like push it through life. So yeah, I mean, this stuff's real, no matter how it seems, no matter how whatever. All right. So anyway, like I said, today's the 24th of October 2024. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. Please don't dismiss this stuff because it seems silly to you. If it does seem silly to you, give it a chance because it's truth. And yeah, I mean, my life's been changed, my body's been changed. I mean, this is the only thing, we can't go through life without a body, regardless of what your looks like or how it works or what you wish it was or want it to be. It's what it is. We just gotta allow it to be what it is. And that's our whole goal here. That's what we do at In The Image Clothing Company. So check us out. And yeah, it's not about us, man. It's just about, we didn't design the body. That's why it is what it is. That's why the company's what it is. That's why we are called In The Image Clothing Company, because we're just designed by and in the image of our God, and we don't get to tell our bodies what to do. And I just know the repercussions of that after years and years of doing that unintentionally. So, all right, thank you.